Hey, everybody, welcome back to Black Lotus Live, where we talk about all things strange and unusual. And tonight, we were supposed to have John Russell here, who is a paranormal psychic. Unfortunately, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened to him. He's not here. And so he's, it just kind of cracks me up that he's a paranormal psychic investigator, and he's ghosted us. So, and Wild won't be here tonight. He's feeling under the weather. Michael is supposed to be joining us here in a few minutes. But I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. I think we're just going to talk about random, weird stuff. I'm sure that some of you have heard about Demi Lovato and her remark about, that's a nice way of saying it, about how we can't call them aliens anymore. She was told by the aliens that they don't like to be called aliens anymore. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson came out and kind of slammed her for the whole thing. And, look, when somebody comes to the country and they're not citizens, they are considered aliens. Well, why wouldn't that apply to an extraterrestrial? This lady, I don't.
So what are we supposed to call them?
Right. Extraterrestrials. They want to be called ETs. Extraterrestrials.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just seems so ridiculous to me. I mean, I don't mean to sit here and sound like Rich Giordano on Goof On and just slam people, but this is just ridiculous. I had never even heard of her until she started making this new UFO docu-series on television. I can't.
John Russell just contacted you.
Aha, John Russell. Hi. Yeah, I did send you the link. It's in your email. It's in an email to you and Michelle. So just go grab that. It's the top link that I sent you. So maybe we'll get John here after all.
Yay. Still, though, that comment, it was just hilarious. I was like,
but I mean, yeah, really. I mean, it's just kind of stupid.
He's the ambassador to say what we can call him now.
Well, apparently they want to be called extraterrestrials or ETs. Yeah.
And they confirmed that with her, right?
Yeah. So apparently we're offending him. Everybody in the UFO community is offending them. So it just really kind of.
The Galactic Federation got together and decided this, right? And that she was supposed to pass this message out?
Yeah, evidently, And like I said, I had never even heard of her. I mean, apparently she's an actress and a singer, and she put out some pretty good music, I guess, back when. But now she's got that new docu-series on television. Hang on. Okay. John says, I have a link to the YouTube site, but not to sign in. Both links in the email are the same. I swear I didn't do that.
All right. Well, send them a link. Can you do that still?
Yeah, I can do that.
I would say I could send it to him, but I don't have his information.
Yeah. John, I'm just going to send it to you in chat right now, and you can just click on that. Please, nobody else click on that. I won't let you in.
Everybody's going to go, I want to be on
the air. I almost made that mistake before.
Did you?
Almost. Real close.
Yeah, maybe I did send him both. The links were both YouTube. It's possible. I mean, I was probably half awake when I did it. So hopefully he'll be here in a moment. But anyway, so what else is going on in the UFO world right now?
Silence.
Crickets.
I heard that we're supposed to get some information, some like groundbreaking information, disclosure kind of thing, sometime between now and Thanksgiving. But it's just kind of a rumor. I haven't really heard much about it. Have you guys?
No.
No, and I haven't
Just that
heard
we're
much of
supposed-
anything going on, like, any of the big stories. I haven't really heard anything like that recently.
But supposedly we've been having more UFO sightings.
Oh, I don't doubt that a bit. And I think
And I
it's
don't
due
know if that has to do
to.
with disclosure.
Say again. I'm sorry.
I said, do you think it's due to just that disclosure that we were supposed to have had? Maybe that, they're going to try to show up because we didn't get the proof or didn't get the message?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I think, but I don't know.
Hey, John.
Hey, John. How are you? Yeah, I think that a lot of this has to do with. Oh, hey, John, are you still on YouTube?
Hang on, let me see here. Yeah, let me
Okay,
get
go
out of
ahead.
that. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, both links in the email both went to the YouTube channel, but there was no link to StreamYard.
Did it? Yeah.
Sorry about
like
that.
I said, I was probably half asleep when I did it.
Hey,
So.
that's okay. I
Sorry
didn't
about
ghost
that.
you though, but I can send you a ghost.
No, I have enough.
So, okay, folks, let's get on with the show at hand. So this is John Russell, and he's been an internationally known professional psychic for almost 50 years. He's also been a featured guest on many popular radio shows and recently on a TV pilot for the History Channel, in which he psychically explored the assassination of President Lincoln. He's also an avid motorcyclist, and from what I understand, he plays a mean game of chess. Me too. I play a great game of chess, but I wouldn't play you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play you because you're a psychic.
Well, when I play chess, I try and shut the psychic gift down as much as possible. So I just use my logic and my thought process. That's part of the thing that I work on training through chess. So I try not to cheat psychically when I play.
You need to come out here to Vegas, and we need to go gambling.
There you go. There you go. Hey, listen, I used to, when we lived in New York, my wife and I used to take day trips to Atlantic City. And I would use my psychic gift to find the dollar slot machines that would pay off. And we would come back from Atlantic City with a profit.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It's not cheating.
Don't
So
let the
you've been a
casinos know
psychic for
that.
something like 50 years. How old were you when you realized you had a gift?
Well, that started when I was around 6.
Wow,
And,
that young.
that resulted from an awakening, from a ghost that awakened opened up a portal to all the paranormal manifestations that I've experienced on the physical realm. And then shortly after that, my psychic gift manifested. And around early teenage years to mid-teenage years, I read for friends and family. And from 15 to 18, really read heavily for friends and family and started to get a little bit of a following. And then at the age of 18, started reading professionally and been doing it ever since.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good.
So
So
when
your
you said
family
you-
didn't shun you off of doing that, right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said, so your family didn't shun you away from doing that, right?
No, fortunately, my
Right.
family was very supportive. And I think that's one of the things that that helped my gift to grow and encouraged me to
Right.
study and to get involved in paranormal research, paranormal investigations. And the fact that I was encouraged, and not like a lot of families where, little Johnny Hush, you don't have an invisible friend, stuff
Right.
like that.
Exactly.
And instead, my family had a history of interaction with the paranormal and with psychic things. And we're all believers. So I was encouraged in that. And then that allowed me to kind of go out on my own and develop and do my own research and everything. And so that helped immensely to have that freedom, that encouraging atmosphere.
What did your parents first realize that you had this gift?
When I was about 6, I was playing out in the backyard with a toy, And this car pulled into the driveway, and I didn't recognize the car, didn't recognize the people. So I ran inside and I said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, there's somebody out here. I don't know who it is." So they said, "Okay, we'll come see." So they came out, and they said, "Oh, those are friends of ours." And I was like, "Okay." So they walked outside to the driveway to meet them, and they were standing out there on the sidewalk talking. And I was goofing around with my toy. And I kind of went up and just stood and kind of eavesdropped on everybody. And all of a sudden I looked at the people and I said, "You folks just went on vacation." And I said, "You took that car in the driveway, you drove that car, and you took 2 kids with you. They're not with you today, but you have 2 kids and you took them with you on vacation. And you went to this hotel that had this many stories, was painted this color, had these trees that looked like this in the front. The pool area in the back was this color and looked like this." And the husband was kind of like, "What's going on?" And the wife, I'll never forget, it was delightful. Her jaw was agape. Her eyes bulged out wider and wider and wider. And she went, "How the hell could he possibly know this?" And my parents kind of didn't know what to say. And she said, "How the hell could he possibly know this?" And she looked at me like I had cobras coming out of my ears. And my mother said, "Well, you know, kids and their imagination." And she goes, "That doesn't explain this. Kids and their imagination. What are you talking about? How the hell could he possibly know this?" "That's what we came over to tell you. We've just been on vacation and we were coming to tell you about it. And we drove our car, that car in the driveway. We took our 2 kids. We stayed at this hotel that looked exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know this?" And my parents were like, "John, go play." And I was like, "Yes, nice to meet you folks." And they never talked to my folks again. So I guess I was a pretty spooky little bastard. That was when my folks discovered, aha, this kid's got something.
I think it's cool that your folks were supportive of this, because
Yeah, my mother
so many
more
people
so than
wouldn't.
my father. My father was actually kind of a closet believer. For one thing, he knew that he had grown up in the church, a staunch conservative church. And with that background, he knew that if you got too far involved in anything paranormal, the church was going to come down on you, and he didn't want to risk that stigma. And the other thing was he was a tough old goomer, man. He owned a bar. He had been a cattle rancher, and he owned a bar, and he was this tough old guy. I mean, he kept a blackjack and a hammer behind the bar and had used them. And but the paranormal scared him because it wasn't anything he could confront. He couldn't control it. He couldn't fight it. He couldn't hold it. He couldn't get a handle on it. There was nothing he could use against it. And it really spooked him. It really scared him. And he had to acknowledge the reality of it because of all the experiences we had around the house. But he tried to keep it at arm's length. And my mother and her family, on the other hand, they were very, very deeply involved in it. And so that was where most of the encouragement came from.
Right. And from what I understand, it's usually a matriarchal lineage kind of thing. And so if, the son or the daughter is psychic, generally it's the mother is too, and the grandmother, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a lot of people in our lineage, though. Even the males were psychic. My uncle was, my grandfather was, a lot of people going back. So we had a pretty deep family history with it. I got the big blow up gift, though. I got all the manifestations, all the experiences, the biggest psychic gift, the most insights, the whole 9 yards worth. So why me? I don't know, but I'm glad that I was chosen. It's been a wonderful. It's been really great. It's been really great.
Now, you've written a couple of books. The first one was Writing with Ghosts, Angels, and Spirits of the Dead. And so what you do, I guess, is you jump on your motorcycle and travel all over the States and other places and do these psychic investigations into hauntings.
Right.
And then you also have another book out, and it's called A Knock in the Attic: True Ghost Stories and Other Spine-Chilling Paranormal Stories, Adventures.
Right.
And I'm dropping a link for both of those in the description, folks. So if you want to check that out, the first link is writingwithghosts.net, and the other one is aknockintheattic.net.
Right.
And definitely check these books out. Like I said, he's been a paranormal investigator for close to 50 years, and so I think people who have been involved with this long, you need to sit up and pay attention to these people, because I think that there are a lot of psychics out there that are flash in the pans,
Yes.
and I don't think that they're necessarily real. John Russell is one of them who I think is the genuine article.
Thank you.
But you've had experiences with guardian angels as well.
Yeah. A lot of guardian angel experiences. And one of the arguments that I get from some people, which is really so odd to me, some people think that guardian angels influence or guide, but never directly intervene, especially not physically. And I have to tell you about one of the stories, and this is in one of the books. When I was a young man, I had been living in an apartment on my own when I was in my teens, and I moved back home. And my next door neighbors, this guy had been like, he played chess and he built things, was a woodworker, did all these wonderful things in his yard, and then he got dementia, and he just was uncontrollable. Like, he was on a cane, and he would strike out at his wife with his cane, and anybody else that came around him, sometimes he would strike at him with the cane, and he would hallucinate things. And maybe he wasn't, maybe the veil had dropped for him. He was seeing things on the other side, but whatever he saw and or hallucinated, he would swing at with the cane. So periodically, his wife would go, can you come help me? Can you come calm him down? And for some reason, he responded to me, and I could calm him down and get him settled down. And I was happy to do that. And I would go over and shave him and things like that, and just sit and talk with him and just help him out a little bit. So she asked me one day if I could come and hang some new curtains for her in their living room. I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So we went, and I went over there, and we all went to the living room, me and her, and she showed me what needed to be done. Had a little step ladder there with 3 or 4 steps on it. And then she said, well, I'll have him in the den, which was on the opposite end of the house, and we'll be back there, and just come holler at me when you're done. I said, okay. So I was young, and I had real good balance, and I had studied lots of martial arts, Tang Sudo, Taekwondo, Shotokan, Kung Fu, Judo, and I had all this experience doing these flying, spinning kicks and all these moves and everything else. So that plays into this. I'll get to that and make sense out of it for you. So I climb up on the step ladder, and I had to stand on the very top rung, and I'm taking the old drapes down, starting to put up the new ones. And very uncharacteristically for me, I lost my balance, because I had real good balance, but I lost my balance, and I began to fall off the ladder back into my left. And as I began to fall, now it takes a lot longer to tell you about this than it happened. It was like a split second. But in my mind, in a split second's time, as I started to fall, I said, okay, I'll go back this way, and then I'll torque back this way. And then as I'm falling, flip my body around in the air, which I absolutely knew I could do. Totally workable plan. I knew I could do this physically from my martial arts experience. And I'll flip in the air, and I'll either land on my hands and knees, or land at least mostly on my feet, and then my hands, I'll catch myself. And I knew I could do that. No problem. So I torque back around this way and get ready to fling myself back around as I'm falling. And as I'm falling, this hand, big, strong, large hand, reaches right up on my hips and my lower back, my left hip and lower back, and stops me from falling, and pushes me back up on the ladder and holds me till I catch my balance. And I immediately looked around and said, oh, and there was not a soul there in the flesh, not anybody there in the flesh. Wow. I was like, wow. So I finished hanging the curtains and kept looking around to see if the guardian angel spirit, whoever it was, would reappear. And they didn't, but I said thank you a whole lot. So that was one of the guardian angel experiences. And then I was riding my motorcycle down I-75 here in Florida, and it's a beautiful day. I had scheduled myself a day off, and there was plenty of sunshine and not a lot of wind that day, surprisingly, and blue skies, no clouds virtually to speak of. So I'm just geezering along about 70 in the right lane, which is supposed to be the slow lane. Well, here in Florida, the 3 lanes on the interstate, The right lane, the speed limit's 70, people go 80, 85. The middle lane, they go 90 and above. The left lane, they think they're training for the Daytona 500.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the right lane. I'm going 70. I'm just geezering along. I'm looking at the countryside. There's some beautiful countryside there. And I'm just happy to be alive. And I'm enjoying being on the bike. And I'm not wanting to go any faster. Sometimes I dip down to 60, 65. And I'm just puttering along, just really enjoying the day. And the guys, I call my guides, guardian angels, everything, the retinue that's on the other side. I have an umbrella term. I affectionately call them my guys. So the guys speak to me and say, move into the far left lane. And after all these years, I still argue sometimes. And I'm like, man, come on. I don't want to move over there. It's going to take me a lot of really fancy riding to get over there. And I'm happy here. I'm tooling along, enjoying the scenery. I don't want to go over there. And they say, John, move into the far left lane now. I'm like, okay, so it's downshift, upshift, throttle on, throttle off, brake on, brake off, bob, lean, weave, accelerate, make my way through all the traffic, and I can get into the far left lane. So my high-speed riding skill is really good. I've got real good, really high-speed riding skills. So I'm not anywhere near those, but I'm still going faster than I want to be. You know, I'm going like between 80 and 90 now. And I'm like, what in the world is this all about, guys? And about that time, in the right lane where I just was, either a car hit this guy or this guy hit a car, and he spun around in that lane, wound up facing the wrong way on I-75. And our eyes actually met as his car was spinning around. And we made eye contact. And detritus from the wreck was blowing across the interstate like pieces of bumper, and hubcaps are rolling and all this stuff's going on. And I'm like, holy cow. If I had not only listened, but obeyed to what they had told me, that would have been me over there being smashed to smithereens, because as soon as he hit and spun around, I would have run right into him. 10 cars would have hit me. And so I wouldn't be here to tell you this today. And
Wow.
That's another example of an absolute physical guardian angel experience. And I've had many of those, and there's more that I write about in my books.
Wow.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Yeah.
Hey guys, how you doing? Sorry, I was caught up with Third Phase of Moon. We worked on a panel episode tonight. It was over 2.5 hours long. We'll be chopping that up. You guys are seeing it. So that's why I'm tardy, and I apologize for that.
No problem.
How you doing?
Michael, this is John Russell. He's our guest panelist tonight.
John, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Very well, man. I caught what you were saying as I came into the studio here, and I do have a couple things to say. The first is, it reminded me when I was in college and I was going up to a beach in New Hampshire on a break during the summer with a friend of mine. And as we got up there, I'm sitting in this traffic, and there are 3 cars in front of me waiting to turn left. As I'm sitting there, all of a sudden I hear in my head, "Are you ready?" And I just instinctively looked up, and in my rearview mirror, here came this Ford F-150, plowed right into the back of me, hit all 3 other cars. But very clearly, I heard the sound. You know, the voice said, "Are you ready?" So I thought that was interesting that you brought that up. And my question to you is, when we do hear something like this, and obviously an instance like that is very impactful, could be traumatic. I mean, there's a lot of heavy energy that goes into something like this. That voice that we hear, when we catch it, how can we focus on it to perhaps make it louder or more discernible from the internal dialogue that we carry with us every day? What are your thoughts on that?
Good question. What I tell everyone, what I teach everyone, especially all my clients, is the number one problem that we have that keeps us from connecting spiritually is we're constantly plugged in. We've got the earphones in, the earbuds in. We've got the cell phone going. We've got the computer going. We've got the TV going. We're on the phone. We're texting. We're looking at memes. We're on Facebook. And it's constant. It's absolutely constant. Now, how does the other side get through and compete with that? They don't, because our attention is so focused on this. And it's not an exaggeration or being melodramatic. I'll give you an example of the intense focus. I was riding my motorcycle through this this city and was watching this woman walking down the sidewalk, and she's on her cell phone, right? And and she's not even looking up as she's walking. She's just head down, scrolling and flipping and tapping and all this. And she heads to this intersection, and here comes a pickup truck the other way, and she is heading towards the intersection just as the pickup truck starts to turn left, and she doesn't even look when she hits the intersection. She feels her way off the curb with her foot, steps into the path of the pickup truck, and I'm like, oh, holy God, I'm fixing to watch this woman die. And the guy was paying attention, hit his brakes, and this is what she did. She looked up and went, huh, and then went right back to her phone and walked on across the street and walked on down the way. So I'm not exaggerating when I say that this obsesses, controls as a compulsion in our life. We're so focused on this that we can't pay attention to anything else. So the first thing we have to do is disconnect so that we can hear the other side.
Right.
And then we have to shut the hell up, because we go to the other side and we go, heal so-and-so and bless me, and I need money for this, and will I get a better job, and look, I want a new girlfriend, or this, on and on and on and on and on. So we're constantly bombarding the other side with gimme, I need, blah, 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 blah. And we never shut the hell up. So what we have to do is go to the other side and say, I am willing to be guided, and I am willing to listen to the protective advice that you have to give to me. What do you have for me today? And then shut the hell up and listen for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And that's how you begin to train yourself to hear those voices. And you do that every day. And if you think about it while you're scrolling on your phone or your own Facebook or whatever, and it pops in your head, shut everything down or turn away from everything. Just turn your chair around and get quiet, turn off the music, turn over whatever you've got going, and just say, I'm listening, I'm here. And just get quiet and listen. And then here's the big key thing. When they tell you to do something or not to do something, you have to obey that. You have to do it or not do it. Exactly right. Because if I had kept arguing with the guys that day, I wouldn't be here to talk to you guys right now.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, actually.
Yeah.
So that's how you do it. You have to tune in. You have to listen. You have to get to the point you can hear that voice. And then when you hear that voice, you have to obey that voice. And the more you do that, the more they'll communicate with you.
You've been on a lot of paranormal investigations.
Lots.
And mainly like hauntings, but have you ever experienced a poltergeist kind of situation?
Well, that's fairly routine, and in my own life, there's a lot of situations that you could describe as poltergeist if you wanted to. When I was young, I wore earrings a lot. When I was young, I had a ton of earrings I wore, and I had this one earring I really loved. It was a gold skull and crossbone earring. And I took a nap one day, and I had this in my bedroom. I had my bed, a large bedroom, had a recliner in there, and I had this white table beside my recliner and nothing on it. So I put this gold earring and take it out of my ear, and I put it in the center of that white table. So this gold earring on white, you can't miss it, right? And I take my nap, and I wake up, and it's still a beautiful day outside, still really gorgeous, about mid-afternoon, a little later in the afternoon. I said, man, I'm going to go get me some Mexican food at my favorite Mexican food joint. So I look over and I start to grab that gold earring, and I look at it. And for some bizarre reason, I decided, no, I'm going to wear a different one. So I got up from my chair, walked around the bed to my nightstand, opened the drawer where I kept more earrings, mostly skull themed, because that's what I really like, have skull tattoos. And I looked down and I thought, no, I'm going to wear the gold one. So close my drawer, walk back around the bed to the chair. So this is taking 30 seconds maximum, and the earring's gone, disappeared, not there.
No.
And so that's the type of thing I have. Is somebody on the other side say, I want that. But then they bring me things as well. Like I had made some chili and was eating a bowl of chili, and I was just about to take a bite, and the phone rang, and it had the weirdest sound to the ring. The rings didn't sound normal. They sounded really strange. And I started not to get up. And I thought, well, I'll let the answering machine get it. And I thought, well, I better check and see if it's somebody that I need to talk to. So I left my spoon there in my bowl of chili, went to the doorway where the phone was located on my desk, and it stopped by the second ring. And like I said, the ring sounded really strange, really weird. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Went back to my bowl of chili, looked down in my spoon, and there was a chunk of wood in my spoon. I'm the only one home. There's a chunk of wood in my spoon. I still have it to this day. It's over here on my desk now. And so they here you go. Here's a gift. And they made sure they'd put it where I would notice it, where I would find it. So
No receipt though, so you couldn't return it, right?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I have those type of experiences. You can say they're poltergeist or whatever. I don't have what I would count any malevolent experiences, and I think a lot of people that say they have, typically when you say poltergeist, that equals malevolent in most people's minds. And I think that most people don't have malevolent experiences. They have experiences they misinterpret. And I'll give you a real good example of that. When I was shooting the pilot for the History Channel, there was a lady at one of the places that worked there, one of the docents, and she said, when you get a break in filming, I have to talk to you. This ghost tried to kill me. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. So, we got a break in the filming, and I said, okay, come here, and we'll get off in a private room here, and we'll talk. So I told my producer what I was doing, and I said, excuse us. And so we went in there. She said, yes, this ghost tried to kill me. I said, no ghost tried to kill you. Yes, this ghost tried to kill me. What happened? Well, I was in my kitchen, and the cupboard door flew open, and this plate sailed across the room and hit the wall right by my head and burst, fell down, and shattered into all these pieces. Ghost tried to kill me. I said, no. Ghost wasn't trying to kill you, wasn't even trying to hurt you. Ghost is trying to get your attention. And what I discern psychically talking to you is that the other side has been wanting to communicate with you some very specific things for a long time, and you've been ignoring them or putting them off or counting it as coincidence and not paying attention. And they've tried and tried and tried because they really need to talk to you, not through a psychic, not through a medium. They need to talk to you. They need you paying attention. And they've been trying to do this for a while, and you keep kind of ignoring it or pushing it away or whatever, till finally it's like, okay, ignore this. You can't ignore this.
Right.
So they're not trying to kill you. They're just trying to get your attention and get you to start listening and interacting. And if you'll do that, you'll be amazed at what happens in your life, the guidance you get, and so on and so forth. So she understood that. So I think a lot of people that have those experiences default to malevolence or demonic or whatever. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from our Christian upbringing. The Bible is full of paranormal experiences, but it's full of paranormal experiences that are sanctioned by the Bible.
Right,
and if you go outside of that, then it's demonic, satanic, malevolent, whatever, as in any religion. If it's sanctioned by that religion, it's okay. If it falls outside that religion, then it's no good, right? So that's our default position with anything that happens that, we grow up with those glasses on. And everything that happens, we view through those glasses until we're trained and taught otherwise. And, get to the point where we can say, hey, it's not everything that happens is evil or demonic or malevolent or bad or whatever. I've known people that good things have happened to, but because it wasn't something directly from the church, oh God, I can't accept that, or I can't deal with that, or I can't have that in my life because it wasn't something appropriately sanctioned by their religion. So that's, I think poltergeist gets a bad rap. Of course we have spirits around us that do all kinds of things. Most people have the experience of spirits bringing them coins. Coins appear out of nowhere, and all that type of thing happens very frequently. So we have to be careful what we call what, and we have to get away from the dogma and the tradition and the ritual within our own spiritual and psychic confines. I was asked one time to be a guest on a pagan radio show, and they were literally pagan, just like Wiccan or Buddhist or Methodist or whatever. They were pagan, the pagan religion. So I was asked to be a guest, and they asked me about my experiences. I told them about all my client testimonials, all the experiences I had with the other side, my success as a psychic. Yes, but are you pagan? And I said, well, in some of my belief systems, I have some things that are paganistic or that are kind of pagan practices. Well, yes, but are you pagan? Are you specifically pagan? I was like, no. And they wouldn't accept me on the show because I wasn't a pagan. So within our own circle, we have all this goofball stuff
Right.
overcome, so it
Well,
gets crazy. It gets nuts.
That's certainly what happens. I mean, people, subscribe to fear first and foremost when they come up against something they're not familiar with.
Absolutely.
We've seen it for centuries. This is the normal reaction. So, when you look at some of this activity in way of what we might consider poltergeist, wherein physical objects are moving, yes, it certainly behooves whoever is involved to stand back and look at this through a different filter or try to stand outside of it to some degree and understand it. Now, when you have consistencies in way of this particular phenomenon continuing and with the timing and the delivery of this sort of thing, for example, if somebody's attempting to scare from the other side, slamming doors, there's sometimes a different intention, but does it necessarily mean that it's evil? I have to say that it's not necessarily at this point our main focus, or should be, to identify it in certain ways. We're supposed to be at this point opening up that door, becoming aware of this, and noticing that it's a facet of our own human experience, and a natural one at that.
It is, and we have to ascertain who or what is trying to communicate, what their purpose is, what they're trying to get across. And I've maintained for a long time, we like the flamboyant. We want the ghost to come and push the Ouija board and give us the winning lottery numbers. We want the big sign that we get that's, oh my God, this is going to be my husband and he's tall, dark, handsome, and rich. And we want those big, huge, drastic, fantastic things. And I've maintained for a long time that just as we go to a bus stop, sit down, wait on the bus, somebody else comes up and they sit down, we look at each other, hey, how you doing? Hot enough for you? Oh man, I can't wait till the winter gets here. I'm so tired of this hot weather. Yeah, me too. Hey, you a baseball fan? Yeah, what about them Yankees? Oh man, those dogs are breaking my heart this year. On and on and on. Is there anything life-changing there? Are we curing cancer? Are we solving pollution? No, it's one human being communicating with another, having a little bit of warmth, a little touch, a little compassion, a little human kindness for a little bit, just to make another connection in the world, just to feel good for a little bit with another human being. And my contention has been for a long time that there are spirits on the other side that do the same thing. Hey, I'm here. How you doing? Just want you to know I'm around.
So do you think that when like, for instance, the cupboard, the cupboard flew open and the plate went sailing across, is that out of frustration, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, man, we've been trying to get a hold of you, trying to get you to pay attention. You've been ignoring us. Now ignore this. You can't ignore this.
Right,
so yeah, it's absolutely out of frustration.
Well, they often say, sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say very quickly, they often say that if you aren't listening the way that you should be, eventually the universe will hit you on the head so hard you have no choice but to listen.
There you go.
You just don't want it to get to that point.
Yeah, that's why we try and keep them from getting there and not being so stubborn and not, take the earbuds out and listen, instead of listening to the music.
Right.
Well, let's start out with nudges, and then it gets a little bit more interesting after that because they've got better aim than that.
Yep, and so it's better if you listen to the nudges and obey the nudges than rather than them have to get heavy-handed with you.
Right.
Well, and that's just it. From my understanding is that ghosts generally won't attack you.
No.
But there have been reports where, for instance, people have been pushed downstairs. Is that out of frustration as well?
I haven't found any. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I haven't found in all my paranormal investigations, I haven't found anything legitimate like that.
Really?
I haven't found anything yet where anyone has actually been harmed physically by a ghost or any invisible entity or anything like that. Now, I'll have to pull back and say, okay, I'm not going to condemn everything that everybody says, but I have not found it in all the paranormal investigations I've done. I've never been harmed. I've never been threatened. I've never known anyone that actually was. And in my experience, and again, this is not a blanket condemnation. We have to be open, sure. But in my experience and all the investigations I've done, when I've been called in to investigate a quote unquote demonic possession or a malevolent entity or a dangerous situation or whatever, a lot of the times it has been 99% of the time, it has been drug abuse, drug use, mental illness of some kind from mild to major, overactive imagination, misinterpretation of the circumstances, unintentionally, unconsciously self-inflicted wounds, like a scratch or something, where maybe they got a spider bite in the night and they scratched in the sleep and they woke up and they're, oh my God, look at this, there's scratches on me. And they did it. So that's been my experience, and I don't have anything else to the contrary that I can hang my hat on. Now,
Ralph,
yeah.
John, you were talking about how they'll sometimes steal things from you and then
Right.
turn around and gift you. Ralph had an experience like that once with a ring.
Yeah, it was a ring that I inherited, and it just disappeared one day. And after a couple of months, it reappeared, but it reappeared right in the middle of the living room floor.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no way we would have missed it.
Sure.
Because we walked back and forth through that every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, and then just there it was.
And
So why would they do something like that?
That gets your attention. I'm sorry, Terry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So why would they do something like that? Are they just
get our attention? Just say, hey. When they do something like that, you're not going to ignore it. And it's like with our move here, with all the experiences, I've had way over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations in my life. These are things that we have photographs of, we've audio recorded, video recorded, other people have seen as well. And with all of that, they still do things just to say, hey, we want you to know we're here. We're still watching over you. We're still close. We just moved. And in the process of moving, I've been around the block a few times. I'm 67 now. My wife's 65. So we're getting up there. And so, moving is a young person's game. And so we got her son and his girlfriend to help us. And so the girlfriend and my wife were off in another part of the house, packing up stuff, doing things. And me and my son were in one other part of the house doing stuff. And so there's some things in my old office that I absolutely had to have when we got to the new house. And so I said, okay, we have to pack this stuff up and put it in this box. We'll seal it up. We'll mark this. It's got to go right now. So when we got here and I was setting up my new office, there were some things that I absolutely really needed that I didn't have out yet. And so I said, guys, you got to help me find this, please. We've got all these boxes in the garage. And I said, you really have to help me find these because I really do need them. So I went out to the garage and they led me to this box that my wife had packed and written on. And the stuff that my son and I had done, we put it in a box, taped it up. I wrote on it, but they led me to this box that my wife had written on. And it was like John's shoes and some other stuff. And I'm like, well, what in the world? Why did you lead me here? So they were like, open the box. So I cut the tape, opened the box up, and there on the top was those items that I specifically needed, but that my son and I had packed in a different box and sealed.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
And it appeared in this box. And so as we began to unpack, we discovered that there were several things like that. Things I had packed were now in a box that she had packed. Things that she had packed were now in a box that I had packed. My chess pieces, Damien, were in a kitchen box. She was unpacking kitchen things today, and she goes, here's your chess pieces. And I said, what are my chess pieces doing in the kitchen box? I have no idea. So the guys are kind of like, hey guys, lighten up, have some fun. We're here with you. We're watching you. We've got you covered. So, and I think a lot of that, it's kind of lighthearted if you think about it. And it also, it's a marvelous thing to think that the powers that be can be that closely affiliated with you, that closely associated with you, and can physically manifest those things, make those things move about like that.
Yeah.
That should invoke a sense of awe and wonder when those things happen to us. You know, and we're still, wow, you know, look at this. So it's a marvelous thing, and it kind of gives you some hope that, hey, you know, if they can manifest that and do that, there's other things that we can learn, that we can manifest. There's hope for healing in this world and making the world a better place through this power, through working with this power.
John, I want to get back to what you said, how, you know, the spirits don't necessarily attack, but Michael was also a paranormal investigator, and he had a very traumatic thing happen to him at, Michael, what was the name of that penitentiary?
This was in the Rutland prison camp in Massachusetts. Yes, well, East, yes,
do you want to explain what happened?
Yeah,
sure.
Because it was pretty terrifying.
One thing I'll mention before I very quickly reiterate this story to you is that I was told about a particular entity that had been drummed up by a group of Satanists who were in one particular part of the camp at some point, and they released it and had no idea how to put it back. So it was now roaming around the camp. This was common knowledge. And the person who was telling me this, he said, you know, just don't go over to the tunnel area. That's where he is. You stay over in this area, you're fine. I said, okay. He said, but listen to me, because I actually exercised this off another investigator about 8 months prior to us having the conversation. I said, okay, well, I took it seriously. Long story short, I went into the investigation. We stayed far away from the tunnels, but this thing actually found us. One of the investigators heard the footsteps run up from the tunnel area into the root cellar that we were in. Although I didn't hear audibly, he was shook to the core to the point where he didn't want to go back into the structure because he was feeling this fear that was starting to surmount around us. Of course, I pushed him and said, we're here to do this, and went right back in there. Sure. In my mind's eye, I began seeing, I'm kind of very quickly going through this process, but the first thing I noticed was this light. It was a very red, sickly light, as if you have a fever dream and there's some sort of red hue behind it. Acting on you physically. I was seeing this in my mind's eye, and I was feeling it in my body. At the same time, behind me, there was a very large entity that was probably, if I were to guess, about 10 to 12 feet tall, screaming with rage. What do you want? Why are you here? Why are you asking? I mean, anything you could imagine. I would think to myself, this is, the most angry thing I've ever come up against. This is crazy. And it was starting to pour off onto me. Certainly being an empath might have had something to do with that. But what ended up happening is there were other legions that came in, and we saw these with our physical eyes that surrounded this particular being. I cut the investigation short. I was feeling uneasy, and I was getting a ride home from one of the other two investigators I was with as we're exiting the camp. I said, man, something's just not right. He said, yeah, I feel weird. That was crazy. I'm like, no, something's not right. And I could feel it even then. So long story short, once again, I ended up having this particular attachment in my auric field for about 3 months. And when I had brought this up to the person who had made me aware of it, he kind of laughed. And I said, what are you laughing about? He's like, well, apparently it was hungry enough that it came to you. I'm like, great. So what are we doing about this now? He's like, well, we could start here. We could start there. And every suggestion, as seasoned as he was, didn't seem to resonate with me. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to sit on this, and I'll feel out how I need to deal with it. So there came a day, and I still don't know how I was able to execute this, but somehow it worked. I'm sure I had protection from the other side. It's really the only thing that makes sense to me. Is that I turned to it within my mind's eye, because it was always behind me. I could close my eyes, I could keep them open, I could always see it. And it was always waiting for me to turn around and ask him the questions that I had originally called him for. That's what it was there for. Yep. So in terms of honor, obviously the other side really sticks to its guns. So there's an expectation when you go out and reach to them that you're going to do the same. And if you don't, then you have troubles like what I had. So I did confront this thing. In one way or another, I said, this was my intention. It was not my intention to have you follow me, but this is where we're at. And in so many words, I'd like to divorce this experience now. And within this moment, it started fading back, and it was like
Right.
stills. It wasn't like nice and smooth. It just started getting further and further back until it hung out way, way in the back. I could see it as a small speck like this, and it was
Right.
turned towards me as it was just watching, and stayed there for another month and then completely disappeared. So the thing is that the other investigator, I actually found her recently, inadvertently. She wrote an entire book on her experience with this particular entity, and it ended up coming home with her twice on two separate occasions. But we've been able to identify what this is, and he was dealt with accordingly at a certain point. But this happened to me after she had already gone through many things. So clearly, whatever they did in way of banishment did not stick.
No, it doesn't. And what we have to understand, exorcisms, banishments, closing portals, that doesn't work. That doesn't do any good. For one thing, you are dealing with powerful entities that have their own volition, their own will, their own mind, their own purpose, and we don't have control over them. Most of the time, they can exert some type of control over us if they desire. Now, what you did was hit the nail on the head when you said, when you interact with the other side, you have to do so with complete honesty, because again, we know that we have deceased loved ones on the other side, be it friends or family. Those have been people like us. I know how to interact with all of you guys. All of you guys know how to interact with me. Okay. Now, if an angelic being comes along, like the guardian angels that have helped me over the years, I can have a, oh, wow, thank you moment, but I don't know how to interact with these guardian angels. They're much higher than I am. They're much more powerful than I am. They see things from an entirely different perspective than I do. And then you go into nature spirits, other entities that we may not even know who or what are. Their thought processes are not human because they're not human. They're going to have their own interests, their own purpose for being on this planet, in this dimension with us. They're going to have their own activities. They're going to have their own way of looking at things and doing things. And to us, that could be scary or demonic or malevolent or whatever, but it's not, because like you say, when you go into something, and this is why I always tell people as an aside, when you go into a paranormal investigation, don't go curse the spirits. Don't go challenge the spirits. Don't go badmouth the spirits, because they could take you, hang you out the window and drop you if they wanted to. And I'm not exaggerating. I'll give you an example of that here in a minute. But go in with respect and realize that on this planet, interacting with us, living in the same dimensions with us, are these incredibly powerful spiritual beings we don't understand. Okay.
Yes.
And we don't know completely how to interact with, and they can take offense very easily. And what you want to do is approach these beings with absolute total respect, with absolute total honesty. And I've always done that, and I've never had any problem. And what I always do when I go to a place, I go there and I say, listen, I'm here. I'm not here to challenge anyone, to stir up any problems. I'm here to learn. I'm here to ask some questions. I'm here to see if I can interact with someone. If you have a message for me or someone else that I can convey, or something to get across to me that I need to convey at large, fantastic. If you want me here and want to interact with me, fantastic. And if you don't want me here, and not, do you hate me? Who do you hate the most? Who do you want to kill? Who do you want to get out of here? Who do you want to hurt? None of this ignorant BS. But if you really seriously don't want me here, if I'm disturbing something by being here, I'll be happy to leave. And if you don't want me to come back, I won't come back. If I can come back another time, I'll come back another time. Excuse me. But approach the other side that way, and approach these beings this way, because we don't know what a lot of these beings are. And we don't know all of their intents and purposes, and we don't know their thought patterns and the way they think and their purposes and what they do on this planet and what they're controlling and interacting with and dealing with and so on and so forth. So we view all these things through our human glasses, and when we go into these investigations, we got to take those human glasses off and go, okay, what am I encountering now? All right. And it's just like, I gave the example the other day. If you have a pet snake, that snake isn't human. It may adapt to you and like you, may come and curl up in your lap while you watch TV, but it's still a snake. It's going to seek out rats and eat live rats. It's going to think like a snake. It looks like a snake. It's going to act like a snake. And if you reach over and grab it while it's sound asleep, it may jump up and bite you because something got me, something's trying to eat me. I got to defend myself. Snake mind, snake mentality. So
I think that's just it. I mean, the key word here is respect. You know,
that's it.
That's why I can't watch these paranormal investigation shows on television.
They're
Like
hideous.
Zach Baggins is a good example.
Oh my God.
You know?
Oh my God.
Don't get me started. And
Just no respect at all. You know, that's the reason I like. Now her name escapes me. Her first name is Kitsy. She runs the Paranormal Crossroads investigation team. She's one who has a lot of respect for the people because she has the same attitude you do. They're just people like us, you know? And if you were to go into their house and start making all these demands, you're not going to get, first of all, you're not going to get many results. Secondly, you're going to insult the spirit, you know? So,
exactly right.
Yeah. And she does get a lot.
I was talking about the immense power that the other side has available to them that they could exercise on us if they chose. I was going down 95 South coming home after a long ride on the bike. I used to go out ride 200, 300, 400 miles, sometimes 500 miles in a day. I rode 15 to 1,800 miles a month on my bike. And this is while I'm reading full time for my clients and doing radio and all this other stuff. So I'm coming home from a ride and there's a storm behind me to the north, but it's moving real slow and it's real far away. And I said, well, I have time to stop at the rest stop, relieve myself, get a soda, get a snack, and then I'll continue on. I'll be okay. So I'm at the rest stop and I'm looking and the storm starts snaking around to my, would be the north, south, east, west to the west and kind of coming around that way, but it's still moving real slow and it's still far off and I'm still in blue skies and sunshine, even though I can see these clouds coming in. So I get on the bike. Now I have ridden since about the age of 15 and I have ridden in hail. I have ridden in sleet. I have ridden in snow, sand, ice, high winds, tornadoes, everything on the planet I have ridden in as a biker, okay? And as I'm pulling out on that, I take out of the rest stop and I start to pull back on I-95. And as I'm going up the access road there, the wind hits and I'm like, wow, this is really strong. I've ridden in really incredible wind, but this is like, I'm starting to get a little nervous here. And as I get onto 95, merge into the lane, I noticed that the traffic, which normally goes 90, is going about 40, 45. Now that in itself is a miracle on the Florida interstate, okay? But the wind is so strong that cars are having a hard time controlling themselves. Trucks have had to slow down to keep from swerving, blowing over and whatever. And my bike is like being pushed into the other lane and I'm like counter steering and leaning and everything I can to keep from literally being scooted into the lane next to me. I'm like, well, this is not a heck of a lot of fun. So, and still the bulk of the storm's behind me. Now I'm still in blue skies and sunshine here, but the clouds are snaking around and I look up ahead and the grass and the little plants and the smaller trees and things are bent over sideways and rippling like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I grew up in West Texas at the tip end of Tornado Alley. And I'm like, oh, geez, we either got something on the ground or something coming. And so I start looking around and I don't see anything. And about this time, me and the bike together are picked up as one unit into the air, about 6 inches a foot off the ground while we're going forward 45, 50 miles an hour, picked up into the air. And we begin to rotate counterclockwise till I'm at an angle that if this thing sets me down, I'm going over sideways at 45 miles an hour and being hit by 10 cars before anybody gets stopped. And the first thing that goes through my mind is, I wonder what the other side's like. I'm fixing to find out. And I hope somebody gets word to my wife and helps take care of my wife, get her through the grieving process and everything. And this force just holds me there and kind of rotates me like this and just kind of like looking at me, kind of like examining me, and then rotates me back just off kilter and sets me down. And I do enough body English and enough maneuvering to get the bike straight and get on down the road. And I'm like, holy God. Now that was paranormal. I mean, I had this feeling that something was like, look at this guy. Look at this guy. And letting me know, look what we could do if we wanted to. And then set me back down. And I looked up, and here comes this funnel cloud coming straight out of the clouds down toward me. And I laid over the tank, downshifted, and I hit the throttle till the stops. And I ran that engine till it screamed through all the gears. And I ran hot for about 5 miles. I didn't care if there was a cop. I didn't care if there was a highway patrol. I was out of it.
I don't blame
So
you.
I got to this place where Tattoo Tavern, it's long gone now. But to me, it was the most genius thing on the planet. They had a bar with a tattoo parlor. I said, how much better can things get? So I had a rule by then that I very seldom imbibed on the bike. But I said, after this experience, I'm going to go have me a beer. And I was waiting for the tattoo parlor to open. And the tattooist had a special going where you get the number 13. Friday the 13th was the next day. And 13th always been my lucky number. Friday the 13th has been very lucky for me. And she ran the special on either side of the day. And you got the number 13 for $13. And I said, okay, so I'm waiting to get that. So I go into the tattoo parlor, opens up, and I go in. And I'm sitting in the chair getting my 13 tattoo. And I'm telling her about the experience. And I look out across the street. And from across the street, the exact same funnel cloud, the exact same shape, exact same configuration, coming at the exact same angle, comes down from across the street towards the tattoo parlor. And I was like, holy God, look at this. And she walks to the window and looks at it and goes, looks like it followed you. I was like, Jesus Christ. So it went on over without incident. And I finished up my 13 tattoo, and I haven't been lifted up in the air on the bike since. And
You should have got a tornado with it. Tornado
yeah.
13.
So, the other side has this immense power to say, look what we can do if we want to. And we know exactly where you're at. And you think you outrun us, but guess what? You didn't. We know exactly where you went. We're showing you that we're coming right at you. We know where you went to. It's still us. You see us. And so the lesson I learned from that was, look at the immense power that can interact our lives, and look at what they could do if they wanted to. Look at the damage they could inflict if they wanted to, because that was kind of the impression that I got when I was lifted up and inspected, turned around the air, was like, look at what we could do to you if we wanted to, but we're not going to, but look at the power we have. And that was a life lesson for me. It's like connecting me even further and deeper with this to realize, wow, look at this.
John, we're going to get out of here pretty soon. But before we go, as you know, we talk quite a lot about UFOs.
Right.
And it's my understanding that you have had encounters with UFOs, including in all places, Roswell.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I've had several UFO encounters and interactions. One interaction with a UFO, which was pretty mind blowing. The Roswell, I call it a UFO experience in quotes, but it's a marvelous story. I had gone. There was a thing in 1998 called Alien Encounter 98. And I went to Alien Encounter to do psychic readings there in Roswell while they had Alien Encounter. And they had lectures. Stanton Friedman was there. I got to see him lecture and so on and so forth. So it was really great. And I was doing psychic readings there. And so one morning I get up early and I'm like, I got to go see the Roswell UFO Museum. You can't come here and not go to the UFO Museum. So I get up early, I go down, and I get there too early and it's not open yet. So I'm looking through the windows and waiting around, standing out on the sidewalk, and there's not much foot traffic. It's pretty sparse there. And this lady walks down the sidewalk, and we nod and say, "Hey, how you doing? Yeah, hello." And she stops, and she says, "You waiting to go to the UFO Museum?" I said, "Yeah, I got here too early. It's not open yet, but I'm really looking forward to it." She said, "Oh, you'll enjoy it." And she said, "Your first time here?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Oh, well, do you live here in Roswell?" I said, "No." I said, "I live in Texas, grew up in Texas." And I said, "Oddly enough, I was born in Carlsbad, but I've never lived in New Mexico, and I've never even been back, and grew up in Texas." And I said, "This is my first time in Roswell, my first time at the UFO Museum." She goes, "Oh," she said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well," I thought, "Oh boy, here we go." And I said, "Well, I'm a psychic, and I'm here giving readings at Alien Encounter 98." And she looks at me and she goes, "Then you'll understand what I'm about to tell you." I said, "Okay." And she said, "When I was a kid, me and my brother were outside playing, and we saw the UFO come over and saw it crash off over in the distance." And I was like, "Ma'am, you have got my attention."
Mm.
And so she said, "Even as kids, we knew it wasn't a blimp. We knew it wasn't a weather balloon. We knew it wasn't a plane. We knew it wasn't a helicopter. It was a UFO. It was clearly visible. It was close to us. We could see it very clearly." And she said, "From the way that it moved as it went through the atmosphere, we could tell that it was in trouble, that it was having some kind of problems. And then off over in the distance, we saw that you could see it go down and crash." And I was like, "Wow, this is better than the museum, right?" And I said, "Listen, let me ask you something." I said, "With eyewitness testimony like this," I said, "My God, this is the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. And with eyewitness testimony like this, why don't more people like you come forward and speak and tell people this?" And she said, "Back then, after this happened," she said, "people in the military, people that we assumed were military, people that we thought were government, people we didn't know who the heck were, would come to various households and say, 'If you mention this, your bones are going to be found out in the desert sand.'" And I was like, "Oh, wow." And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "If you were, if you had some metal about you and you said, 'Well, I bring it. I don't care. You're not going to frighten me.' But if you had kids, a wife, whatever, you may not care about your personal safety, but, you don't want your family harmed. You're not going to put your family at risk." So she said, everybody shut up. And about that time, she looks up and down the street both ways a couple of times, and she goes, "I've said too much. I've got to go. I'm sorry. Nice to meet you. Bye." And walked off.
Wow.
All those many years later, that fear was still there. And
Right.
if you read about the aftermath of the Roswell crash and the encounters between the populace there and the military and the government, that's not an uncommon story. There were a lot of people that were threatened and so on and so forth. So that was my experience there. And it was like, dang, like I said, better than the museum.
I want to mention that Rich Giordano from Goof On is here, and he is going to be on our show on November 7th. So make sure you when the ad comes up for it, make sure you set a reminder for that, because I think that this is going to be an outstanding show. Rich is extremely knowledgeable about UFOs and what's going on in the world with UFOs, and so most definitely show up for that.
Right.
Also, I want to mention Unidentified S4, who is a new fan of ours, and we're a fan of his. He says, "John, did you ever check out the crash site of that UFO crash in
I
Roswell?"
never did get to. No, I wish I had been able to, but I haven't so far. And something I would love to do, because I think that psychically it would be really interesting to see what I pick up and discern from that.
Right. Absolutely. I've heard a lot of people that go out there and they take that tour out to the crash site, and you can't really get to it
Right.
that far into it.
Yeah.
But they all say the same thing. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. There's nothing
Sure.
there. I mean, obviously, if something did happen there, all the debris is gone. So what are you going to
sure.
see?
Yeah.
However, you being a psychic, I'll bet you would pick up something pretty incredible.
I would think so. And, it's like, and two, how do they even know that they're being taken to the actual crash site? When they
Yeah,
do it?
right. Exactly.
And,
Terry and I Terry and I moved from Florida out here to Vegas. And on the way, we stopped at Roswell, and we had never been there before. I had no idea what to expect. But,
right.
Honestly, aside from the museum, I thought the museum was fairly interesting. But the rest of the place is just, it has a carnival atmosphere.
It
It's
does,
just,
yeah.
kind of
Little
dirty.
alien and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll ever go back
You can
there.
buy the little inflatable aliens and the little bobblehead alien.
Right. It's like one big gift shop, pretty much.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
I did find the street lights intriguing because the street lights look like aliens.
Right. Right.
So I thought that was pretty intriguing. But anyway, we are going to get out of here for the night.
Okay.
John, thank you so much for being here. I mean,
My pleasure.
Ralph and I,
Yes, thank you.
It's
Ralph and I
great
really
to
enjoyed
talk to
having you
y'all
on
and
our
talk
pod.
to all of y'all, and it's been awesome.
Ralph and I really enjoyed having you on our podcast at Paranormal News Network, and
Thank you.
but that's why I invited you here, because I thought that the people that follow us on YouTube would really enjoy hearing you.
It.
So,
I appreciate it.
Anyway,
Yes, thank you.
Michael, Ralph, Terry, Kim, do you guys have any other questions before we close out?
When you coming back on the show?
Yeah, I think you got a lot more information to tell us.
Oh,
Yeah,
God, I haven't
I
even
believe
scratched the
so, too.
surface. Whenever you want me, give me a holler.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll set it up with Michelle. Most definitely.
Okay, sounds good.
We've got some openings coming up in November. So
Okay, now November and December, I'm taking off.
Oh,
So
are
I'll
you?
be back in January. I've done over 70 podcasts this year.
Oh,
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Yeah. And I just did, a day ago, I did 3 2-hour podcasts in a 24-hour period.
Jeez.
So I am
Sounds like
taking
your
November-
schedule, Michael.
I'm taking
Yep.
November and December off to enjoy the holidays, spend time with friends and family, and then starting the podcast again in January.
There you go.
Sounds like a plan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks for being
Certainly
here.
Viewers,
appreciate your being here.
Viewers,
No,
thanks a lot for
I
watching.
appreciate
And as always, we appreciate you so much. Don't forget, if you like what we do here, you can help us monetize by going to Patreon. We have a Patreon page. We have a page at Buy Me a Coffee. And so you could do it that way, and it would be much appreciated. We're not monetized on YouTube yet, so that's the only way we can do it right now. I'm thinking about opening up a Cash App for us, but not yet. But anyway, again, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell, and then click all so you get all of our notifications that we're going to be going live. But anyway, until next time, keep thinking and question everything.